Furthermore, he has assured the youth of Elevating Kasarani Football Academy is a way of ensuring that talents are nurtured to international standards.
I can confidently tell you that I have a fairly good idea, a good view of the sport or the sporting terrain, and I am not under any illusion as to the state of this terrain at the moment.
Namwamba also addressed the issue of the misuse and misappropriation of sports funds, making an assurance that funds meant for this ministry will be used to improve sports infrastructure as well as investing in rising talents.
Mr. Chairman, my biggest achievement as Minister for Sports at that time was the enactment of the Sports Act. In fact, for the brief period that I was in this ministry, I took it upon myself to accelerate the process of enacting this law. And it is in this law that we provided for the establishment of the fund. But I left the ministry before the institutions established under this law were actualized.
Concerning the state of Kenyan music and art, the nominee decried the mismanagement at the Kenya Corporate Board, describing the operations as opaque, while also promising to do a reshuffle once he is approved.
But we have to elevate this academy to a point where it becomes a focal point for nurturing talent in this country. Identifying talent, nurturing talent, and unleashing this talent onto the national and the global stage.
Other issues discussed during the session include the marketing of Kenyan sports at the international level, which will ensure Kenyan talents shine at the Global Summit. Lincoln Chege, KUTV.
Elsewhere, the face of technocrats in President William Ruto's unveiled first cabinet that is dominated by politicians, Kenya Electricity Generating Company KENGEN CEO Rebecca Miano closed the day's vetting by the committee on appointments at the National Assembly. The cabinet secretary nominee for ESC, Arid Lands and Regional Development revealed the value of her assets at ranging at 397 million shillings. She doubles up as the vice chairperson of the United Nations Global Compact, a member of the Law Society of Kenya, a council member of the World Bank Group, and a member on Advisory Council on Gender and Development.
KENGEN CEO Rebecca Miano would seal the day's voting exercise at the National Assembly, choosing to humbly relay her record and position in various local and international bodies.
I would describe myself as a humble country girl. There was no elevator or escalator in my career. I steadily rose the staircase.
Ms. Miano is expected to infuse corporate governance in the cabinet. In the government, her job is cut out as Kenya seeks to increase its economic stake in East Africa.
I am also a council member of the World Bank Group Advisory Council on Gender and Development. I am serving as the Vice Chair of the UN Global Compact.
Exports from Kenya to East Africa countries have shrunk over the past decade, despite expectations that Kenyan entrepreneurs would experience a boom under the regional trading bloc that took effect in 2010.
If my nomination is approved, I look forward to pursuing and protecting Kenya's interests and our arid and semi-arid lands for posterity, prosperity, and for the good of our people in Kenya.
At KENGEN, she managed to shepherd a profitable corporation, and should she ascend to the position of Cabinet Secretary for the East Africa Community, Arid and Semi-Arid Lands and Regional Development, she will have a task of pivoting Kenya's interest in the region, apart from channeling solutions to address ESOL areas in the country. Emmanuel Kutosi, KUTV.
While that aside, Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua has flagged off the batch of the 88 metric tons, a story that we will come to next after this one. In an effort to keep more pupils in school, the government has pledged to launch a school feeding program in select areas of the larger Ndaragwa constituency in Nyandarua County. This is due to hunger crisis caused by the ongoing drought in several parts of the country.
Speaking at Nyoronjoro Primary School in Ndaragwa during the Mashujaa Day festivities, Walter Ngaira, the Deputy County Commissioner for Nyandarua North, stated that the national government is working with the county government to ensure that the school feeding program is put into place. In order to guarantee complete class attendance, residents of Ndaragwa constituency had pleaded with the government to implement a school feeding program in view that it has been difficult for them to provide for their children and at the same time send them to school.
Kama sub-county tumeweka mikakati, tumeweka our request katika serikali kuu kuona kwamba tuwe considered alongside wale wengine ili tuweze kupata chakula. Ikija kupitia kwa hawa machifu wenu utaweza kupata ile kidogo ambayo tutapatiwa.
The arid and semi-arid Ndaragwa is the driest region of Nyandarua County, receiving little or no rainfall and mostly depends on relief food when its food crops fail.
Tuombee chakula. Hii mahali imekauka na Otogo Madam PM amesema ni ukweli kabisa hakuna chakula. Tunaweza omba kama itapatikana msaada hawa watu waletewe chakula.
In May, the Kenya Food Security Steering Group projected that 4.1 million Kenyans in the arid and semi-arid lands are acutely food insecure. For KUTV, I am Teresia Maluki.
And now let's revert to Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, who has flagged off the second batch of 88 metric tons of NPK subsidized fertilizer. He said the consignment of 62 trucks, each carrying at least 100 bags, will help smallholder tea growers across the country. On September 22nd, Gachagua flagged off the first consignment of the 3.55 billion of subsidized fertilizer. Well, that aside, the Kenya Tissue and Transplant Authority has registered an increase of 15 new blood banks to the current 45, up from 30 in the previous year. KTTA Nairobi Regional Director Festus Koech said that the improvement is supported by 6 functional region blood testing and centers that are present in the Lake Region, Central Rift, North Rift, Nairobi and Eastern, Mount Kenya and Coast regions, and other functional cold rooms in Nairobi, Nakuru, Kisii, Eldoret, Kisumu and Embu. Well, at that, we take our first break right here on KUTV Primetime News. Remember to stick around, for coming up after this break is the discussion on Ebola virus disease, which you would not want to miss. See you then.
All Africa, we're a software company based out of Nairobi, Kenya, and we build customer-centric solutions that helps businesses communicate effectively with their customers. So the first solution that we offer is a VoIP solution. So the VoIP solution is basically a call center that allows you to push up to between 1,000 to 1,000,000 concurrent calls at a go. So that's either if people are calling you in or whether you're calling people out. The advantage that we've been able to also see with this is people can work remotely. So if, for example, you're in Nairobi and you're managing a team in Mombasa or in Kisumu, then you have full access.
Alright, so we are plating the other parts of the Lyonnaise potatoes that are have been deep fried.
Kwanza tuende lunch. Chapo.
Rasha piga shada kuna giza. Sikinai tujinai siweke story. Kata maji pia shada liko nasio nikosa msupo si stress. Kama rende kisha basi nipe.
Kiwa mama big up. Brother ukiwa adriva big up. Sis big up. Shows mama big up. Oya wase wote. Okay, my principal big up.
Ukiwa na dukuduku la michezo, tunafungua sanduku la dukuduku kwa ufahamu zaidi. Kila danadana, mitimpo, mifiatuko na harakati zote ugani, sisi ni wako mwandani. Kukurukakara zote nyanjani, haziwezi kuangaziwa zaidi ya micharazo michezoni. Mimi mwanaspoti wako matata Peter Pinches Mwaora ndakuwa na jopo lenye maarifa sufufu, nikufahamishe na nikuburudishe wewe shabiki shakiki kwa uhakiki na kindakindaki.
pupils from various schools were invited to perform different entertainment activities, such as participating in the police parade, reciting poems, and performing traditional songs during the celebration of Kenyan heroes at Karisa in Kilifi. Kilifi County Scouts Coordinator Madam Muthoni Ireri has been at the forefront in leading groups of children who are members of Scouts to join national celebrations and even take part in parades. Ireri, who is also a teacher, says the event gives the children good exposure as they get to see their leaders and also get a practical part of learning.
Kuhusisha watoto kwa hizi sherehe ni muhimu sana. Kwanza inakuwa ni exposure kwa mtoto. Manake kama leo tumekuwa na watoto kutoka Sikunze wamekuja kusherekea pamoja na gavana. La pili pia wanapata kuwa kwao ni masomo. Manake hizi sherehe zote ziko katika silabasi yao na wanafundishwa katika shule.
Madam Ireri explained that the long-term effect of involving children is that their patriotic spirit will make them uphold the values, hence making them good and productive citizens in the future.
Mtoto ambaye ni mzalendo hataweza kufanya vitu ambavyo havitakikani kwa jamii yao. Jambo la kwanza, hatakuwa mtu, hatakuwa mwizi, hatakuwa muuaji, hatakuwa anajua yeye ni mzalendo, na mzalendo mtu anapenda nchi yake. Anaweza itetea nchi yake, na akiweza kutetea nchi yake pia anatetea wananchi na jirani.
Kisumundogo village elder Monica Mwenda, who was happy to be part of the celebrated Kenyans for maintaining peace in Kilifi, commended the children's presence during the event, saying it gives them a better understanding of the history.
Wakati mtoto anapojua historia ya nchi yake na kila hatua ambayo nchi yake imechukua, huwa itakuwa kitu cha maana sana. Maana historia hiyo itamsaidia yeye katika masomo yake, katika maisha yake, na hasa kujua nchi yake vizuri sana.
They now urge the government to ensure national celebrations such as Mashujaa Day, apart from being declared holidays, also incorporate school-going children countrywide. Eugene Mayabi, KUTV.
Well, that there was the Mashujaa Day heroes making a clarion call to the government to make sure they include the school-going children in the Mashujaa celebrations to inspire patriotism. Let's now get into the discussion of the night. Ebola is back and vaccines don't work against it. As of Tuesday, there had been 60 confirmed cases and 24 deaths in the outbreak, which began last month in Uganda, which has had multiple outbreaks in the past. In the period dated 2014 to 2016, Ebola outbreak in West Africa went down as the largest in history. Recurrence of this virus comes even after a vaccine was developed to fight the Zaire strain of the virus, which apparently doesn't work. Now tonight we find out why this is the case with the help of Dr. William Songok. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for the invitation, and I really enjoy being on this show every time I come.
Tell us a little bit about yourself before we get into you telling us about this, Ebola virus.
My name's Dr. William Songok. I am a lecturer here at Kenyatta University School of Medicine in the Department of Medical Microbiology and Parasitology. I teach the medical students virology, in particular immunology, and also service the pharmacy school as well as nursing and public health.
Well said. That tells us that you have a little bit of background on these viruses and how they occur. Now, Uganda reported the Sudan strain of, the Ebola virus disease. Sudan and Uganda do not border each other at all. So where exactly is this coming from?
So when you look at it historically, just to step a little bit back on Ebola virus, how it gets the name is that the first cases of Ebola virus were seen in Sudan as well as in Democratic Republic of Congo. So there's a region that borders the Ebola River, and that is where it was first seen to be there. And where you tend to see some of these recurrences is where you see there is a breakdown of social setup, for instance, hospitals and security matters in that case. So in a place like South Sudan, where the government is not fully functioning, so to say, like, they have a lot of political instability, you can have a case, cases beginning to occur in that region. And Uganda, in as much as they don't border each other, is that they've had these cases in the past, and the chances of it coming about is not new. In fact, they were able to deal well with COVID because of such cases in the past.
Mm-hmm. That said, we have had a vaccine, implemented, or rather found in the past for treating this Ebola virus disease. And we expect that when a vaccine is administered to the body, there will be immunity against that virus. So why then do we have another case of Ebola, or other cases of Ebola virus?
So one thing about Ebola virus is that it's an RNA virus, similar to what we saw with COVID. And as such, it has, there are 5 types of Ebola virus. So to say, there are 5 siblings that belong to the same family. And the vaccines that were developed were against the other strains. But this strain from South Sudan and the one that recently emerged, in Uganda, which spilled over to Uganda, so to say, the vaccines have not been shown to be effective. The vaccines that have been developed have not been shown to be effective against these strains. So when a vaccine is developed, it's directed toward a particular strain. Sometimes they have something called a broad spectrum, where they can cover a plethora of viruses within that family. But in this case, we see that there's been some mutation that have occurred in this virus that has made the vaccine not that effective. Last I checked is that they were going to test the current available vaccines on this new strain that came from South Sudan. So there's still some research underway to see if the vaccine will be effective against it. But at the moment, really, all the vaccines that are out there haven't been shown to be effective against this one. But they will do some more tests to see if they can get some protection based on this.
Okay. Yeah. Now, the whole world, WHO and the CDC, is looking at the Ebola virus cases in Uganda. Why are we looking at it from that perspective if its spread is not that contagious as of COVID-19?
One thing about diseases is that they know no boundary, and the cases of how it happens is that you can get infected today, or somebody can get infected today, and they can harbor the virus. For instance, for Ebola virus, the incubation period is between 10 to 21 days. So somebody can be infected today when they travel to a place, an endemic area like Uganda, and then they get infected, and then they have the virus beginning to replicate and multiply within their body. And they travel to another place, and they can go to the United States, they can go to Europe, and when they get there, they can begin to spread the virus that way. So I think what we've learned in the past is that whenever a disease or whenever a condition is identified at a particular place, it is better to deal with it at that particular area, other than letting it get out of hand and then begin to deal with it then, because it can be quite expensive. And when you look at Uganda right now, just to step back a little bit on what's happening, is that the conditions have become really, like you mentioned, 64 cases, 24 deaths. Most of these deaths are among the healthcare workers. And actually, Uganda has imposed some lockdowns in some areas, the hotspots, where these cases have been shown to be on the rise. So they're really taking measures. And I think as a world, they need support, because if they don't, then the whole world at some point maybe on their knees, just trying to contain the virus.
Dr. William, you've mentioned the 21 days of incubation of this virus. So at what point in these 21 days does it become infectious?
So one thing about Ebola virus, unlike COVID, is that if somebody is not showing symptoms, then they are not infectious. Like the virus doesn't spread until the symptoms begin to show. So some people get infected with the virus and then they are able to clear the virus. That way they don't spread it to other people. But when they begin to show the symptoms that come with Ebola virus, then that is the point when they begin to share the virus. So I can say between these 10 to 21 days, it varies with individuals depending on their immune system. Like if somebody among the young people, let's say somebody in their 20s, their immune system is robust, so they can control the virus that way. But people with immunocompromised conditions can actually have have the virus spread out.
Okay, that mentioned, you talked about when the symptoms starts to show. You know, we want to know, that makes me want to know what exactly happens. Like for COVID-19, we had all this fever, and I understand that some of these symptoms of Ebola virus disease presents the same way, except for that we may have some, different symptoms that we would want you to, speak about, tell us about what exactly do we expect to see. What does this particular disease do to somebody that makes it so dreaded in the world?
So the initial signs and symptoms for Ebola virus mirrors that of malaria. In fact, when patients show up in the hospital, sometimes it's a bit difficult to tell whether they have Ebola or they have typhoid or they have Ebola. But as time goes by, some of the symptoms that are specific for Ebola begin to present. And in this case, so in this case, the patients begin to show the symptoms such as diarrhea, vomiting, muscle pain, and then joint pain. Towards the end, the patients begin to present with hemorrhagic fever, where they begin to bleed from every opening in their body. So that is towards the end stage of Ebola. But most patients, I say a good majority of them are able to control it within the first couple of days, but as they proceed, the telltale sign is always that bleeding from every opening in the body. And this is due to what happens is that the virus messes up with the clotting system in the body, where the blood begins to clot and form within various the blood vessels, and that leads to bleeding from nearly every opening. And this is when the person is very infectious. That's why for Ebola they usually try to say that let the government official come and take care of the body at that point. In fact, the locals should avoid touching the dead body of somebody who has died from Ebola.
So who are the most vulnerable groups to, predisposed to this pandemic?
Yeah, so when you look at it statistically, Ebola infects nearly everybody. In fact, other animals, not only humans, because when you look at the origin of this, it came from, it's been shown to be originated from the fruit bats, and then from there it's been shown to infect the monkeys, the chimps, gorillas, porcupines, deer, and antelope. So a majority of animals tend to be to get this virus. And then when you look among the human beings, you see that this virus, the group that is mainly affected has been shown to be the young people. In fact, more than 20% of the cases that have been reported is among the young people. Healthcare workers are also at high risk, because when you look at the cases in Uganda, a majority of the cases are among the healthcare workers. And I think this is because
they handle the patients.
They come in contact with the patients for a majority of the time, and they are the first responders, so to say, and they end up with this disease. And also, the immunocompromised patients, those who have underlying conditions, kidney failure, HIV, transplant patients, such viruses, find an opportunity and ease weakened immune response where they can replicate and multiply within the body.
Those are things to look at. Thank you very much for that. Now, we've seen globally several countries, raising eyebrows regarding this pandemic. Do you think our government is doing enough in preparation to this virus, even as we wrap up? And what's your take-home message to both the government and to the citizens?
Yeah, that's a very good question, and I think when you look at Ebola as a disease or as a condition, you find out that the concentration of these cases are primarily in Africa. You don't see it in Europe and in other areas the way we saw with COVID. So in terms of the government, are we prepared to deal with these conditions? Why to become a pandemic? I'll say, according to where we are now, we are not, because the vaccines are there, but I don't think we have enough doses, even globally, because last I checked, there are less than 10,000 vaccine doses. And if you saw what happened with COVID is that despite the vaccine being there, it was not available for everybody at the beginning. Like, we were at the receiving end. Like in the United States, I remember, reading that, they were asking people at the streets, please come and, get the vaccines while we were waiting here.
So the take-home message you're trying to tell us is everybody to take precaution, because in as much as it's not so contagious as, it's not as transmissive as COVID-19, it is still transmissive.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you very much for coming through, Dr. William Songok. We'll move ahead with the rest of the stories, and we hope to see you next time for another conversation.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And I tell Kenyans, this is an African disease. Let's take good care of it.
Well, at that we take another break. We'll be back in a moment.
Vera Beauty and Fashion College is focused on being the leading technical and vocational training institute in the region. Our team possesses in-depth knowledge and extensive experience in the industry, offering thorough training in cosmetology, hairdressing, interior design, creative arts, training of trainers, nail technology, and fashion design. With branches in Nairobi, Thika, Meru, Eldoret, and now in Mombasa, our courses ensure that learners are completely equipped with knowledge, competency, and employability skills. Enroll today to be a part of a center of excellence.
Who is your celebrity crush?
Glenn Weiss.
Oh, okay.
Ask me about Glenn Weiss.
Tell us about Glenn Weiss.
Glenn Weiss is an award-winning director and a producer. He has done so many projects in the US, in the UK. He's a VMA Awards winner. He's a BET Awards winner. So he's my celebrity crush.
Oh, wow. How does it feel to live your dream?
It feels so nice. At first I didn't know I will become a director.
Ukiwa na dukuduku la michezo, tunafungua sanduku la dukuduku kwa ufahamu zaidi. Kila danadana, mitimpo, mifiatuko na harakati zote ugani, sisi ni wako mwandani. Kukurukakara zote nyanjani, haziwezi kuangaziwa zaidi ya micharazo michezoni. Mimi mwanaspoti wako matata Peter Pinches Mwaora, ndakuwa na jopo lenye maarifa sufufu, nikufahamishe na nikuburudishe wewe shabiki shakiki kwa uhakiki na kindakindaki.
Let's now get into sports. The 7th edition of the Late Fight Night Entertainment is set to kick off tomorrow at Kenyatta University main campus from 6 p.m. until 8. A total of 10 bouts will be on the card, with Amos Eboso and Stephen Weshuli fight marking the highlight of the 7th edition of DAPHNE.
It has been months of waiting, and finally the 7th edition of Late Night Fight Entertainment is here with us. 7 bouts and 3 exhibition matches will be on the card. The epitome of tomorrow's fight will see 2 of the most decorated fighters with impressive DAPHNE records face off in the welterweight category.
It's going to be an event like no other that we witnessed in Kenya. We had a successful DAPHNE 6. This is the 7th. You know how we do it. Welcome tomorrow. As you know, we are an international powerhouse for hosting international games. This is just one of them.
Mixed martial arts fighters will step into the cage to square it out for glory in what is expected to be the biggest fight of their career. For Amos Eboso, no stone will be left unturned as he aimed to cement his status in the annals of history as the greatest fighter of his generation that DAPHNE has ever produced.
And whenever a fighter is calm.
However, Felicitas Mugo will have to wait a little bit longer for her rematch against Ugandan, who snatched away her crown in the last edition of DAPHNE 6 due to ongoing Ebola crisis in Uganda.
Some of the key belts went to Uganda, but the situation that it is on the ground there didn't allow them to come and defend that. But we are promising that that will happen very soon.
All bouts will be aired on KUTV and all its social media platforms. A date with destiny awaits. Auma Evans for KUTV, Nairobi.
Elsewhere, KCB are optimistic of clinching the trophy in this year's edition of the Interbank competitions currently ongoing in Nairobi. The Bankers managed to seal a place in the quarterfinals after winning their last 4 group stage matches and will now face off the University of Nairobi football team tomorrow in their final group stage match at the Absa Sports Grounds. The Governor Central Bank of Kenya, Patrick Njoroge, is expected to officiate the official opening ceremony of the competition tomorrow at the Kenya School of Monetary Studies. The event has attracted over 5,000 bankers who will be battling in different categories. Moving on swiftly, Aston Villa Football Club has parted ways with their manager Steven Gerrard after just 11 months in charge, following their 3-0 defeat to Fulham yesterday. Through its spokesperson, the club thanked the Englishman for his efforts and wished him the best in his future endeavours. The former Liverpool midfielder replaced Dean Smith at Villa Park in November last year, but has had a tough start this season, winning only twice in the 12 Premier League matches. The MBE title holder has expressed his frustration but also hinted at making a comeback to management in the future. He now becomes the 4th manager in English top-flight league to see the exit door after AFC Bournemouth Scott Parker, Thomas Tuchel of Chelsea, and Wolverhampton Bruno Lage. Wrapping up our sports segment tonight, a second-half goal from Granit Xhaka is enough to see Arsenal rise to the top of their group after flying past PSV Eindhoven at the Emirates Stadium yesterday. The Gunners were to play the Dutch side in September, but the fixture was postponed amid severe limitations on police resources and organization from the Queen's death. Meanwhile, 2 fixtures were played in the Premier League, where 10-man Aston Villa fell to a 3-0 defeat against Fulham with goals from Harrison Reed, Alexander Mitrovic and an own goal from Tyrone Mings. At the same time, Leicester City edged out Leeds United 2-0 with Robin Koch turning a cross from Dennis Pratt to his own net, while Harvey Barnes added a second goal in the second half. Well, that's where we leave it at for the KUTV Primetime Bulletin. Thank you so much for staying with us for the 1 hour of informing you. Remember to come to the KUTV Kenyatta University Amphitheatre, where we'll be locking horns tomorrow night till late. I've been in the company of Moses Gitonga, and I go by the name DAPHNE ORINA. Have a good night and an amazing weekend.